Jacob Khachatryan is a criminal lawyer who will not promise you the world just to sail you up the river. With his experience and skills, you get a defense attorney that is truly by your side, defending you at every stage of the prosecution, including a jury trial where he's had over a 92% success rate for his clients. Whether it's a DUI, domestic violence, or even something as serious as murder, Jacob is the guy you need by your side. That's Jacob Khachatryan, attorney at law. Call 747-755-5555 for Jacob Khachatryan, criminal defense.
Thank you.
This is Maurice Jones-Drew, and you're listening to the What's Bruin Show.
You're listening to the What's Bruin Show, part of the What's Bruin Show network, with your hosts, Jake Berryfield and Mike Regalado, and occasionally some friends, talking all things UCLA sports. And now, it's time for the What's Bruin Show.
Hello, welcome to What's Bruin. I am your host, Jake Berryfield. I'm joined by my good buddy, Mike Regalado.
What
Big
is up,
applause, Big
America? America!
Big applause, Big Mike.
There he is.
That's me.
Mike,
Jake.
let's remember, every time I say, and joining you with my good friend Mike Regalado, before you say something,
Iron Mike.
I'm going to play a drop. It's like before I used to play an insulting drop to Bill. I'm not going to insult you, but I'm going to play one of your many
Mike
drops
Regalado.
that your peers have given you
Hey, shout out to Mike Regalado
over the years.
Mike.
Hey, Mike.
I appreciate
Iron
that,
Mike.
That's going to be it, right? Okay, so good. Timing.
Or if we...
You're a man of great timing.
Oh,
Let's have better timing on this particular thing.
What happened?
Hi, Mike.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
What's up, Jake?
It's the What's Bruin Show, the What's Bruin Show Network. Thank you for your support on Twitter, Instagram, yada, yada, yada. Twitter X, I should say. It's at What's Bruin Show. Email is what'sbruinshow@gmail.com. You can listen on the on the Apple feed, on the Substack, on the Patreon, what'sbruin.substack.com, patreon.com/what'sbruinshow, or what'sbruinshow.com for just a small nominal fee of how much, Mike?
$2.
Just $2 a month.
$2.
You can support the What's Bruin Show and send it into the future. If you go to Substack, it's a little more than $2, but whatever. If you pay the yearly thing, I think it's less than that. I don't know. Go and look, and we appreciate your support. You also get bonus episodes. I literally have been ready to do a Rotten Lunch or a BJ edition with Bill like 3 times in the last 2.5 weeks, and I've been defeated every time. But we're going to get some of that back up there, and we already have a couple in the box in the queue. But that'll be the extra shows for you during the season, at least. And also, you can watch the show on YouTube. Search What's Bruin Show and ignore all the stupid Boston Bruin things. Just go for the What's Bruin Show.
Yeah.
Our Bruins, the UCLA Bruins. And there's a My Locker site with merch. And also, you can call the hotline 805-399-4WBS.
Sucker of Troy.
Sucker Troy. And, we had lots of calls today. They're going to be interspersed throughout the show. We got a couple of reports live from Penn State that I really appreciate from my good friend Jason Rebell. Shout out to him. And I don't know, Mike, it's already been gosh darn hell of an evening. I need to apologize to you personally. I'm sorry.
Jake.
I am sorry.
No need.
I don't have
no need.
Well, I'm sorry, all right.
No need.
I am sorry because I have left Mike sitting here, just twiddling his thumbs for a good hour because I thought that I was going to be home on time, but instead I took my son Malcolm to the doctor for a concussion protocol appointment or whatever, and now he's in the protocol. Sadly, you say.
That supersedes everything.
Halfway
Jake.
through his
never
high school
apologize.
season,
Never apologize for taking care of the family.
Yeah, no, I know. I appreciate it, Mike, but I could have communicated with you better. But
dude, last minute's last minute. Emergencies happen. It happens.
That is true. The net result is, I think, maybe positive for Malcolm. I'm not sure. He's in the protocol, which is a bummer. He's going to miss an unknown number of games. That's a bummer, especially for his dear old dad. However, he was really, really, really hoping that he wouldn't have to go to school tomorrow, which he wins in that regard. He was also really, really, really hoping he doesn't have to take the PSAT, which he wins in that regard. All that's tomorrow. So, a little bit of, happy and sadness for old Malcolm there,
Yeah.
but he will survive. And everything seems minor, so I think we're okay with that. And, the other part of this, Mike, is that there's a hell of a Dodger game going on.
Dude, the emotions are like... It's Colossus at Magic Mountain. It's up, it's down, it's all around.
Oh man, it's like mid-6th now. I looked at the score mobile. It was 1-0 because Mookie hit a home run. that actually counted this time. Then it was 6-1 because the Padres jumped on them in the second, I believe. And then I was like, oh my God, right when I was telling the girls, like, well, don't even bother turning it on unless they turn it around. And they're like, all of a sudden it's 5-6.
Yeah.
And it's been that way for a few innings. But, hopefully, I know unless you're the Godfather Jim Bendat, if you're listening to this show, you're also probably rooting for the Dodgers. Hopefully the boys in blue can get it turned completely in their favor. They're down by 1 right now with a few innings left.
Any team that has brown as one of their primary or secondary colors deserves to lose.
Oh, wow.
I'm just saying.
So let's test
I'm
that,
just
though.
saying.
Like
Cleveland Browns deserve
definitely.
to lose.
Okay.
Padres deserve to lose.
Okay. What are some other ones? Like, I think the Cavs are brown and orange.
Deserve to lose.
Although I think they got a lot of red in there.
They had orange and blue. Oh,
Yeah.
they did have red. They kind of changed it.
Yeah, like back in the day.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't think of any other.
Is Bowling
brown
Green? I'm thinking of like I see a brown eagle in my head. I'm like, is that Bowling Green?
I appreciate the sentiment and the snap take. Although I don't know if like we went down the line and maybe we should do some research on this, but it probably doesn't matter in the end. But anyways, bottom line is
After Dark.
it's been quite an evening.
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
an evening, and we're hoping the Dodgers pull through. And so we might as well just get on with the show because what else are we gonna do? It's weird. I'm trying out these bifocals now, believe it or not, and it's like I'm trying to see if they work for me. I need them to read, but then
Yeah, it's so
looking at
weird.
the
You got to look
soundboard,
up and look down. And
and
yeah,
it's like cutting it off right where I need to hit a button. So I don't know.
Exactly.
We'll see how good this is. Anyways, let's get on with it. Let's do BROfiliated Headlines with Mike, and we'll go from there.
Big applause, Big Mike.
What you got, Mike?
The only headline-worthy story is that last week was men's basketball Big Ten Media Day, and UCLA was picked to
I
finish.
would like to avoid the basketball shows for as long as possible.
I know, Jake, but it's coming. It's coming.
I know.
UCLA was picked to finish third in the Big Ten, their initial season in the new conference. Purdue was number 1, Indiana number 2. So that's going to be interesting when those two storied programs play. UCLA 3,
Go
Illinois
Bruins!
4, and Michigan State 5. That rounds off the top 5. And Mr. Tracy Pearson was there, and he did. He had a really key picture where which he sent on the Bruin Report Online Twitter account. He basically wrote out UCLA going to the Big Ten really hits at this moment, something like that. I'm paraphrasing, and it was a picture of Tom Izzo.
Oh wow.
I was like,
Yeah.
wow, yeah, that kind of does hit home. The
can
fact
totally
that
see that.
UCLA is right in the middle of all that fray. So, so that's good news, especially since UCLA just reloaded, and it's embarrassing, how much talent they have, and we have some.
Let's hope it translates.
We have video up on Bruin Report Online about what Mick Cronin said at Media Day. So go and check that out. Other than that, Jake, we got football to talk about.
Perfect timing because now I have to get the meat off the grill that I'm trying to cook right now simultaneously.
Nice.
So.
Nice.
Blue 32, Blue 32, California, California, hood, hey! Football.
Hey, Jake, it's Jason. Halftime, that last touchdown really hurt. Otherwise, we were doing pretty well. As for the atmosphere here at Penn State, it's awesome. Having a stadium on campus is amazing. The place is packed. About 30 minutes before the game, the place is packed. People are singing and dancing, and the band is amazing. The fans are friendly and very enthusiastic. Not an empty seat in the place. Let's hope for the second half we can score a touchdown. But otherwise, everything is great here. Beautiful stadium, huge, and having a good time. Go Bruins.
Go Bruins.
Hey, Jake. It's Jason. So a little bit more about the stadium. 110,000 people were there. That was like the 5th largest attendance ever. None of the seats have any backs. They're all just bench seats. So people rent some backs, but not everybody. You're packed in there. You've got your knees on each side of the person. And it was all really good. The people were super friendly. Everyone stayed to the end of the game. Great traditions, black shoes, no names on the back of the jerseys, dark blue jerseys except for the whiteouts. Overall, great experience, and we had a really fun time. And we have great weather. Pittsburgh is a nice city too, and good food there, and nice people all around. See you at work.
Go Bruins.
All right. Well, that was my good friend Jason Rebell calling in. He went on the trip to Penn State along with, separately, my my college roommate, Aaron Didon, who I saw down in LSU. But they both reported back saying they had a great trip, and Jason gave us a buzz and let us know what he thought.
Thanks, Jason.
That was great. And
Calling again.
He actually got his wish, although I wish he would have wished for more than one touchdown from the Bruins in the second half. That might have helped out a little bit. Why do you have to sell for just one, Jay? I don't know. But yeah, he sent some pictures and just watching on TV. That's something that I don't know if I've thought about very much, but seeing it on TV, the striped stadium, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool feature that you can get going.
It was funny.
If
I was listening to was it Minnesota podcast, and I guess they had a stripe out.
Oh yeah,
against USC. Was it USC or one of the last two games? And they were talking about, hey, good job on the stripe out, but again, just read the room. Know what section you're in. If you're in the maroon section, we're maroon. If you're in the gold section, we're gold. There are T-shirts available.
Yeah, that's the fun thing. That's a pretty cool thing to do. Obviously UCLA's program is not in any state to try anything like that out. And God, they haven't been since probably the mid '90s, early 2000s. But except for maybe some more years. But that was a pretty fun feature to see.
What's funny is that, this is completely forgettable, but UCLA basketball. The men's team tried to do a stripe out at one of their final games last season. When I was there, I was like, to make a stripe out work, you actually have to have people.
You have to have people, and you have to have people that will actually pay attention to what they're buying.
Exactly.
Which I will say that that's the one difference. We talked a lot about my experience at LSU and how I was like, really, they're just normal fans doing normal fan things. And there was a lot more there at the beginning. And it sounds like that's what Rubella is saying, is that they were there early, ready to go, and getting it hopping. And that is something that is noticeably distinct from an LA crowd. For sure.
But what I got I talked to Ben Bolch about it, who went there, and he told me that Happy Valley is literally, and we kind of talked about this last week, Happy Valley is literally just, imagine Westwood completely surrounded by hills, and that's it. Like there's no exit to Beverly Hills or Santa Monica is just over there, or downtown is like a 20-minute non-traffic right away. No, it was literally a Westwood in the middle of nowhere.
Did he have a fun time?
Oh, he loved it. Yeah, he loved it. But that's the other thing too, especially because that's the other thing. Apparently on game days, the hotel prices go up. So he told me that he stayed 45 minutes away in Altoona, Pennsylvania, I think it was.
Yeah.
Which that's seems reasonable.
I think the only time I've ever heard of Altoona was like in a Bugs Bunny cartoon. I think there's probably some jokes in there about that.
That's how I knew that Rancho Cucamonga was a real place. Like I would say that, and I think it was my uncle who was like, "Oh yeah, Rancho Cucamonga is just up there." I'm like, "This place is real?"
That's nice.
5-year-old Mike, what a dork.
That's right. All right. Well, we did get a game. Mike, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence with this one because I feel in my heart it's still, you're down. You only score 3 points through, 58 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
You are really, you could argue at what point they were completely out of this game, but at some point they were completely out of this game. So I feel like it's sometimes it's hard to be a Bruin game. Where do you land on that? Because I'm either going to push the button or I'm not. We're either going to sing or we're going to not. We need a split take right now, a quick take.
Hold the phone on that one, Jake. Hold the phone.
Oh.
Put a pause. Because, only 3 points. But the fact that we were expecting Penn State to blow out UCLA by 27.5 points, and it was UCLA held Penn State to 9 points lower than their season average. That's one thing that stood out to me.
That's fine,
and that's why I thought that's. Here's the thing. So I actually put out on the Twitters, being a sarcastic smartass as I am. I put out that UCLA is beating the spread, and so many people took it seriously, like that was something I was proud of. like you can take away some positives by beating the spread. But just saying we beat the spread that's clearly not something to be proud about. It was just so funny that so many Bruin fans that are just so pissed already were just like try to attack me and go, "How can you be so proud of that? You're celebrating mediocrity." I was like, "Guys, this is a joke. UCLA is still
Chillax.
down. UCLA is still down by so many points, and again, they only scored one touchdown. Now, I will say that there was some positives with the offense. I like the fact that they they had to change up the offensive line. It seemed like the run game was a lot better with TJ Harden and Keegan Jones getting some good runs.
By a lot better, you mean they actually decided to try to run a little bit?
Well, I don't think
That was a coach's decision, Mike. Look at the attempts through the games.
Totally.
I mean, give me a break. So much of this is what they choose to call.
Exactly, and I think that's
Not to
that's a good point because, like, I can imagine Eric Bieniemy's like, maybe he's not completely trusting of Justin Martyn, so you do try to run it a little bit more, but
he absolutely changed his game plan with the different with the new quarterback. That's for sure.
Yeah, and the offensive line. Which, how come you can't do that with Garbers? But anyway.
Well, it remains to be seen, right?
Exactly. But as it is, I felt like UCLA was not going to win, but I was still interested in seeing what this team was doing, even until the fourth quarter when they finally scored. I actually really I noticed the defense was pretty on point. They were. Man, Carson Schwessinger that dude's a baller, man. That guy's all right. Kate Madrano,
just a baller, man.
Those two guys are really helping out UCLA's defense. I will also say Femi is doing a hell of a job trying to get into the backfield.
He's just a baller, man.
And overall, the defense. And I did preface this on Twitter too. People were like, "Oh, you're grasping for straws," but you kind of have to give props to UCLA's run defense. Which, yes, Penn State was down one of their big running backs, but they averaged 251 rushing yards per game before this, and UCLA held them to 85. UCLA actually had more rushing yards than their opponent in a game. I think it's the first time this season. That's stuff that you got to grow on, that you got to build off of. The same with the offense. It wasn't pretty. It didn't produce a lot, but hey, you got to grow off of it. And if this is what's going to make the team better, use it. Keep going in that direction.
No, and Mike, so much of this has to be kind of in context too. Like, I think just if you watched the game, then I don't think you can come away with this saying that the game was lost by the defense. There were sequences that allowed Penn State to kind of push ahead and really blow up there. Like I'm thinking of the pass interference call that was called probably bogusly, and then
that holding call, yeah,
and then in the next drive by the Bruins was not called. So like there are some circumstantial things that you could say, well, given what we thought the defense would play, this, they still gave up 27 points, right? So, and they still gave up some big plays, but I don't think overall you come away from the same saying that you're upset with the defense, right? And on the flip side, as sad as to say, the 11 points this offense put up, it was not a good effort by any stretch of the imagination, but sadly it was better, and that's kind of now where I am kind of drawing the line, and this is where I think I am going to play the song, because we came on here. Right now, we're trying to have it. By the way, kudos, big ups to my man Mike for doing the post game.
Big applause, Big Mike.
Shout out to Mike.
Hey, shout out to Mike Regalado.
Shout out to Mike.
Because he did the post game in my stead. Because literally, when I was conceptualizing how the last weekend was going to go, I was like, oh, I can get it done. There's no problem. I can do it.
Yeah.
I can do it. I can do it. There's no fucking way I would have been able to do the post game this last weekend, Mike. So thank you, and thanks for the cool beatboxing, by the way. That was fun. I liked it. I did like that.
I was like, wait, I don't have the drops. I sent them all to Jake, and I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? All right, fine. Yeah. So anyway,
and by the way, I want to apologize if you are on Substack. I forgot to put it on Substack, so I'll do that when I do this episode, it'll all populate. You know, it's 17 minutes of madness for Mike.
And it was funny because after the game, I had to finish up what I was doing. I grabbed Hugo, and then I'm like, boom, we got to go. And we had to haul ass to Manhattan Beach because my daughter Violet was getting her hair done for her homecoming dance that night.
How exciting.
I was in my home in East LA. Game is over. Kind of processing it, thinking about it, listening to my son was kind of bored in the car because I'm listening to the homie Brian Fenley doing the post game, and ever the optimist, even more than I.
Take that, UCLA football cynics.
That was in my head the whole
Bruin
time.
Doomsday fans getting humiliated.
That was in my.
And you know what? I'm not feeling sorry for them.
All the way down to
one bit.
All the way down to Manhattan Beach. Pick up the girls, then go all the way to Pasadena to drop my daughter off at her friends, so they're going to get ready. Then go home and do the post game, and just bring all my thoughts together. And then, I'll watch the rest of the great football day, which you guys were just texting. You guys are texting, gods, this weekend. Because that Cal game was just, so God,
sad.
That was another dagger in the heart. And then, that went out late into the night. And then right around 11 is when my daughter said, hey, the dance is over. Can you pick me up? I'm like, here we go. So, it was a whole day. But I figured you were going to be busy, and I do want to get your take on how your day went because aside from the horrible ending, you had a pretty exciting day, Jake.
It was fun. And we'll probably get to
Yeah.
that in the What's Bruin. To be perfectly honest with you, but absolutely.
But I just wanted to just things that popped out in my head, and it seemed it stayed with me. Like the defense, I'm really liking what the defense is doing. Akeka Malloy. Is really understanding what this defense can do together, and hey, they're working with what's given to them, and that's an offense that is not staying on the field or getting a lot of yards or getting into the end zone. So the fact that they limited Penn State to 9 points lower than their season average, that's a plus right there for me. It's like the only plus, but
no, it is, and we're kind of a little bit, we're a little unfocused here. We're kind of all over the place. I'm watching a Dodger game. We're talking about the Cal thing. Like it's Mike's got his back to it, thankfully. But it's a little all over the place.
All hail the Calgorithm.
Yeah, dude, it was so.
Can you give me some reverb or something like that?
Oh, probably.
Give me some reverb. Yeah, is that reverb? Reverb. All hail. That's
it's on mine.
So
you have to talk on mine. I got to figure out how to use the board. I'm sorry. What do you want to say?
All hail the Calgorithm.
All hail the Calgorithm.
Nice.
Is that good? All right, there we go. We're really unfocused here. We really do need to get to the chopper. Get to the chopper! I apologize to everybody.
It was an exciting weekend. As everybody was like, "Oh, there are no good games this weekend." Yet it's been the most fun.
All the games are
weekend
fun,
was awesome.
except for Cal Miami was terrible.
That sucked. Anyway, back to Happy Valley.
So, what I'm saying is, Jesus Christ,
off the rails.
What I'm saying is that I am playing Sometimes Hard to Be a Bruin right now because this is a game that the Bruins lost 27-11. It was on the road. You had your first start for your backup quarterback, who we thought, the consensus before this game is they were going to lose, like they were playing Utah or BYU circa 2009 or 2021 or whatever, and it was going to be like 52-0 or something like that, right? And it wasn't that, but still, they still got beat 27-11, right?
Yeah.
And yet you fire up some of the feeds of the things and some of the response to this game, and this is where, like, Mike, you made a joke about covering, and then people started coming after you, but there literally were people out there saying, like, oh my God, this is such a sign of progress, and oh my gosh, look how great this is, and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, that's how low we've fucking gotten? Is that a 27-11 game in which you were down 27-3 with the minute left in the game, and we're like farting rainbows? No, I refuse to say that, so we're playing it. Sometimes it is hard.
Sometimes it's hard to be a Bruin. Giving all your love to just one team.
And with that being said, it's like I'm fully acknowledging that because what did I text you after this game, Mike? When I was like trying to give you my thoughts, my quick thoughts for it.
Yeah.
It was literally, look, before we went into this game, I was so hopeless about the trajectory of the team because I did not see any changes coming from Bieniemy and EB's BO, and having Garbers injured. None of us knew anything about Justin Martyn. Like, we all hoped that he was okay, but there was a very real possibility he'd come out and let's be completely incompetent, and he absolutely wasn't. He was very good considering the circumstance.
He was confident, comfortable.
Even though very good equated to a like a mediocre performance in the scheme of things. He brought 11 points in a 60-minute ball game. But bottom line is he was much better than we thought he could have been. But looking at this as a whole, I texted you after the game. I said, before this game started, I was seriously thinking 1-11 was not just a real possibility, but a semi-likely possibility. Maybe 2-10 if they get over on Fresno State, because Fresno State's very good. But I was like, every single game from now until the end of the season, I was going to be like, geez, are they even going to have a chance in this game because of how bad the offense was? And then coming out of this game, though, whether we're talking Martyn or Garbers, which we'll get to in a minute, I didn't have that feeling in this game. And that's the one thing that is kind of shining a light for me, is that I now could see this team, if they actually change the way they're deploying things and change the way that they're trying to attack the offense, and with the changes they made to the offensive line, and whether it's Garbers or Martyn or whatever, I could see this team actually having the potential to get a little hot and put up a couple points. And that, with the context, considering that the level of competition, no matter how good it is going forward, it's going to be less than the 4-game stretch they just had. So all things considered, I texted you after the game that, well, this is now a team I could see winning a couple games. Do I think that they can win 5 out of 6 and go to a bowl? Oh, absolutely not.
No.
Not unless they dramatically improve this week against Minnesota and going forward. But it's not the team that was so devoid of hope that I saw going into this game, which was the Oregon, down 30-0 before they got the pick 6, or the game against Indiana where they were just completely hapless for much of that game. God dang it. Dodgers are done in the 8th. They're still down 6-5. This is very frustrating. They had 2 guys on. Anywho, they got 3 more outs.
Oh, they have guys on base and didn't do anything with it? Shocker.
Anyways, so that's kind of where I'm at, Mike, and that's where I played. Sometimes it's hard to be a Bruin, but that's kind of my thought coming out of the game. Is like, I was hopeless before the game. They played this game where they got beat pretty handily, but I'm not nearly as hopeless as I was. But it's still not me going, oh my God, this team is showing so much progress, because they didn't. They just got to the point where now I could envision a world in which their offense is mediocre instead of absolutely dysfunctional. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally.
Yes. I can't see them having a game where they put up 35 points, but I could see a game now where maybe they break the 20-point barrier, and I see their defense as good enough when they're not playing Oregon, Indiana, Penn State, or even LSU, where they could limit that team. Like they limited Penn State, it was a good offense team, to 27. I could see them limiting a team to 20-ish points, and I could see them scoring 20-ish points, and therefore maybe you grind out a win or 2.
Yeah,
that's the progress I see, but it certainly isn't the, oh my God, this is so dramatic, or the looking at Justin Martyn, oh my God, this is so dramatic, Garbers sucks and Martyn's so great, or anywhere in between that. Like, there's nothing ginormously, there's no epiphanies here in that regard.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny because I thought about this, and I'm like, this season is very similar to the plot line of Necessary Roughness, where a team is blown up, they're trying to put it together, new coaches in, and they are just sucking, but eventually they're starting to get better, and you see progress. But we don't have a Scott Bakula.
Mike, I would also argue we don't have an Ed Straight Arrow Gennaro either.
That's true. That's true.
What was your point?
We also don't have a Kathy Ireland, which that'd be awesome.
That'd be nice.
That'd be dope. Although Bagani, he seems to be saving us. He seems to be saving us
our
right
kicker seems
now.
pretty good.
So, there is progress, and it sucks because we would love to be going, oh, let's focus on the fact that UCLA is 5-0 at this point, which they're not. They're not. They're 1-4 for a reason. But we we need to look at what is working, and that's the point of doing like all these podcasts every week. We see the progress.
Is there a point?
Sucks.
I'm waiting for the point. I'm sorry.
There's incremental progress. Yeah, that was a kind of a point, I guess. So it's. I did want to say, like, in terms of, and this is, if you didn't hear the post game show, the thing with me, with me lauding the with the Bruins beating the point spread, is that one of the things is that the defense really brought that down. A different perspective is that UCLA proved that they were better than what other people thought they were. Not on offense, but the defense helped out with that. But there is something to be said about not just beating the spread, but beating it pretty handily.
Yeah, well,
but I'm not gonna champion we beat the spread.
You could also make the argument that Penn State had a little bit to say about that as well. And like I said, when was there really actually any game pressure on Penn State in this game? Right?
I would say honestly, in the first 2 drives.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, great. Oh, UCLA managed to challenge Penn State for 2 drives. Amazing. That's kind of my point. That's kind of my point, right? They
I get it.
Every game, you could say that about every game. Like I want to say LSU, they came out and it was 7-7. Oregon, it was 7-3. I might be confusing.
Not Indiana though.
Whatever.
Even against Hawaii was a bit of a rough start.
But my point is like, okay, like the goal should not be God help me. If the goal is okay, well, through a quarter, we're in the game. What I'm saying is there was never any real actual pressure on Penn State because before we get to half, they're up 14-3. Right, and then UCLA has the opportunity. We'll get right into like kind of like what my thoughts on where the actual game was, because the Bruins had a chance to put some pressure on Penn State, but they never actually do because they go into halftime 14-3, and they get the ball coming out. Right, They have the chance to make this a 14-10 game. Even 14-6 puts a little more pressure, but not really. Ideally, you come out of the half, you score a touchdown, you get it to 14-10, and now there's legitimate second half pressure on Penn State, right? Oh, well, what do the Bruins do instead? They come out, they have a drive that went 3 plays for how many yards was that, Mike? Do you remember how many yards their opening drive of the second half was?
-3.
Jesus effing Christ.
Yeah, that was not, UCLA is not doing good.
3 plays and -18 yards the first drive. And then Penn State gets a field goal. So now it's 17-3. But guess what? What happens if the Bruins come out on their second drive and make it 17-10? Is there still like, well, you're
that's still, score? Yeah, you're one
still
down.
Game pressure. Like you still have the opportunity to do it. They come out, 5 plays. How many yards, Mike? How many?
0, -3, -2.
-7 effing
-7, yeah.
Yards
because they had
on that drive.
They had -14 total yards.
It's the worst in the world.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of against LSU when I'm standing there watching this happen in the second half, and they have the opportunity. They're going to the halftime tied with LSU.
Yeah,
and I feel like they got the ball coming out. I feel like they got the ball in that game too, and they had a drive where they 3 and out or whatever. And then the second drive of that game against LSU, they drove all the way down to the 22-yard line. They're ready to fucking go.
Yeah.
You know where that drive ended? With a 3rd and 36 on like the UCLA 48-yard line.
No
way.
Bueno.
Directly backwards. So it's like,
no bueno.
When we're talking about like this game and how much, what kind of moral victory or whatever you can take from it, I don't think you can take any sort of moral victory from it because you never really challenged Penn State in this game, actually. The positives we're taking from it are purely from the standpoint of they were so dreadfully bad the previous 4 games that at least we saw a couple glimpses here, and because they completely changed the approach of how the offense was attacking. That's what we're going to talk about in just a minute. But, I mean, like, that's why we're playing sometimes hard to be a Bruin. That's why I really don't think we should be farting rainbows out of this, despite what some of our peers may or may not have done. But on the flip side of that, I also don't think this was an embarrassing. It wasn't embarrassing in the way that it could have been embarrassing, right?
Yeah.
This was not going on the road to BYU with Rick Neuheisel and getting just absolutely curb stomped. This is not one of those games going to Rice Eccles and like the Bruins come in there and just get absolutely annihilated. This was not that sort of game, and so it's not embarrassing in that way. And also, to add on to that, the drive at the end of the game where they score the touchdown and they get the 2-point conversion, I don't think that was in any way, shape, or form anything but them trying to get better. The degree to which they get better, could be argued.
Yeah.
But I don't look at that as an embarrassing drive. I don't look at that as a give-up drive.
Why
the
would
game
it be,
was over before
Why would
that.
it be embarrassing? Yeah, sure. It was decided UCLA wasn't coming back. But what would be more embarrassing is the fact that they quit and just go, okay, just take the ball back. No, the fact that they kept fighting, and a lot of people did agree with me on the social medias that, this team is quit. Some people, all the negative Nellies were like, this team quit. I was like, how are they quit? They're still trying to score. Not only did they brush off the extra point, they went for the 2-point conversion, and they got it. Yes, it's only 11 points, and that's my thing, we're going to talk about Garbers versus Justin Martyn, where, spoiler alert, it's not Garbers versus Justin Martyn. It's Garbers and Justin Martyn versus the offensive play calling. But we'll get into that. No, if they didn't score, there'd be even more vitriol. The fact that UCLA lost this game 27-3. Hey, they kept fighting. They tried to do something. Why would you give up knowing that you're going to lose? Why would you give up when you have a chance to try this out or try that out, especially when you have no idea what your QB1 is going to do next week? You need QB2 to get as much reps as possible. And when you get him a rep that includes a touchdown, a confidence booster, that's huge. That's huge.
No, I agree. And it's like, you can't have it both ways in that we came into this game like fearing the worst. You have a guy who's never played a quarterback. You're going to Happy Valley. You have this big crowd and all this stuff. And I think that if you ask the consensus before the game of Bruin fans, they would be like, they are going to not only not cover, but get absolutely blown in this game.
Oh, yeah.
And then when you get into the game and it's like, it's clear you're not going to win, and I would argue that even with, half a quarter left or whatever, knowing what you know about this offense and what they're trying to do and the approach they took, look, you're probably not coming back in this game.
Yeah.
And it's okay because you are in this 4-game stretch where now we thought it was a 3-game stretch, turned out to be a 4-game stretch of top 10 opponents, right? And there is something to be said for kind of managing the loss a little bit in that you don't lose your players. And that's one thing you can say about this team through these 4 games is that they didn't get, the Indiana game was the worst of the 4 losses.
That's what I was going to...
And they've actually, there is, even though I argue to the extent of what you do have to build on and what the positive outcome might be down the line.
Yeah.
How good they can be. I will still say that it's important that they don't quit through the stretch. All we were thinking through the stretch was we were assuming they were going to lose these last 3 games for sure. And we were like, well, you have to manage them and make sure they don't quit on you before you get into the stretch of games that you consider quote unquote winnable. So this is that process. And so to say that, any sort of second half, quote unquote surrender or anything is instead of just, calling what is managing the score or whatever, I think that's all part of trying to keep your team together so that you don't risk getting absolutely blown out by teams that, the odds were long against you beating them anyway.
Yeah.
And like I said, against LSU, you gave it your best shot. You were tight at halftime. And then you pulled together 2 negative 50 drives, you end up down by 14. Well, guess what? You're probably not going to win that game at that point.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
is against Penn State. You had your shot. You come out in the second half, and you had the chance to make it, put pressure on them, but then you don't, and now you're down. You're down 24-3 or whatever. Well, you're probably not coming back to the game. So now I do see the value of just trying to work on your shit instead of necessarily trying to do some furious comeback to dig the hole deeper, because at the end of the game, you can come out of it and say, there are some things we have to work on. So I was a little, Jesus Christ. Dodgers lose. It's so sad. I'm turning this TV off.
That's all right. Good call.
Anyways.
Stupid San Diego.
I know.
You're only good for Mexican food. And margaritas.
There's lots of wonderful things in San Diego. I love the town.
No, it's
I
a
love
great
the town.
town.
I love the town. I hate the team. I love the town. I hate the team. Anywho, so like I was getting I was getting upset with the takes of, oh my God, this is so great because look at how they did. I hate that almost as much as I hate I don't like either side of this argument. So we're going to leave it there and we're going to move on because, gee whiz, we've been recording for a long time and we haven't even talked about the quarterback situation, which we'll talk about right now.
Go Bruins.
Go Bruins.
So, Mike, I want to diffuse the situation that we already have just by you've been to a practice, you've seen these guys strutting around or less than strutting around. So just when we talk about this game coming up against Minnesota, which is going to be on Saturday night at the Rose Bowl, there is a chance that Ethan Garbers has recovered enough to play in this game, but there's also a chance that he won't. So, based on what you've seen at practice so far, where are we at here on this fine Tuesday evening with Ethan Garbers before we get to the, how'd Justin Martyn do versus, oh my gosh, everybody hates Ethan Garbers, yada, yada, yada.
Well, Garbers, he was at practice on Monday, and he had a heavily taped right ankle, and it was apparent that he was just not 100% because when he was doing like drop back drills, it looked like he was protecting that right ankle rather than shuffling normally quickly. If and I could be wrong, there might be some magic juju medicine that advanced sports medicine helps out with, but as of now, I don't see how Garbers could play on Saturday, considering that he's already had a week to try to heal that. But I'm not in there every single moment, so I don't know. Hopefully, he heals up, he heals properly, and he's able to get back out there. But that did not look promising. Also, there was maybe some, TJ Harden sent out a cryptic tweet saying. Oh God, what was it? I'm paraphrasing because it was deleted too. He said he wrote small setback for a big comeback, and then it was deleted. So when we asked Deshaun Foster about it, he goes, "Yeah, I don't know what that's about." He goes, "TJ's out there practicing," and sure enough,
what was the tweet?
Small setback for a big comeback.
And when that tweet went out, I retweeted it on our account, and I think you retweeted it on your account.
Yes.
And I took it as the Penn State game as a whole, is what I thought it was. But then
I did too.
Alternate takes were that he was saying that he was injured.
Yeah. Yeah, and there were like some rumblings that he had a serious knee injury. He looked fine from the limited amount of time that we saw him, on the practice field.
All right, well, you know what I'm going to do for that then.
What?
I'm playing the horns. Thank God.
Yeah.
Ankle. That's right.
Ruben Onije, we did not see him.
Yeah,
and that was a big reason for the reshuffling on the offensive line. That brought Sam Yoon to the center position, Josh Carlin move over to right tackle. The offensive line has a little bit of issues right now, but other than that, there aren't a lot of injury issues. That was a wonderful Sarah bringing Jake a nice cocktail. So as far as injuries, those were like the three big ones. So not sure about Garbers. Harden, we didn't actually see him run, but we saw him jog and do side steps and all that and do high knees. So hopefully he's fine.
Rumors of the demise may have been greatly exaggerated.
We'll see.
At this point, we'll see. I mean, at least, it doesn't look like he had he was practicing semi-normally.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
good news.
And other than that, there was still a lot of high energy for the start of that practice. So hey, at least they're not down on themselves. So
well, I mean,
there's that.
There has to be a little bit of a and you can't take it lightly. I mean, Minnesota just beat SC in their house and stormed the field.
Yeah,
but there's got to be a little bit of relief. And that at least for a week you get to be at home at the Rose Bowl, or you semi at home. You got to drive the Rose Bowl still. I got to tell you how after this season so far and going to LSU and hearing about Penn State, just having an on-campus stadium certainly does seem like a nice thing.
Yeah.
But whatever, we're not there. Anyways,
let's eat the rich and bulldoze some of Bel Air and put the stadium right there.
we don't even have to just turn Drake into it and just
It's too small.
just slap
Drake
the
is too small.
just slap the rich around and say, "You will let
Too
us park here."
small. Too
That's all right.
small.
Anyways, sorry, Mike. It's not too small. It'd be just fine. Anywho,
We'd get our own tightwad hill with Sproul Hall
Yeah,
right there
that's what I'm
overlooking.
saying, man.
You
Dude,
get all
it
these.
was-
You get all these students that are like that just having like parties in their dorm rooms.
Yeah.
Just to see that
That'd
would
be awesome.
That would be dope. That
It
would
would
be
be
pretty
awesome.
cool.
Like the sideline would be terrific. Anywho, sorry. Stay on target. Talking about, now, what the injury situation is, Garbers and Martyn. Coming into this game, there were calls for, there was a lot of blame being thrown in Garbers' direction.
Yeah.
You and I, throughout the last few weeks, I think have been firmly in the standpoint of it's more of the offense as a whole and the offensive design.
Definitely.
And certainly if it's an execution aspect, Garbers only shares a portion of that as opposed to what some fans and some people have just laid completely at his feet. I thought that was completely unfair.
Yeah.
But with that being said, Justin Martyn comes out and has, comparatively speaking, at least statistically, a better game than what Garbers had put together, even though still by no means a terrific game. But, 22 for 30 is a better percentage. 167 yards is nothing special. 5.6 average on the passing, nothing special.
Yeah.
But it seemed to be a little more efficient at times. But what's your quick take on Garbers and Martyn at this point, I guess? And then I have some
Well, we did
data
talk
to
about, we did talk about how the running game was boosted in this, so that helped out the total offense. But I think Martyn looked good, and they had to change things up for him. But when you look at the big picture, and obviously this is what we ultimately have to look at, it's great that we can slice and dice what happens in between, and this happened in the third quarter, this happened in the second quarter. Bottom line is that UCLA still only scored one touchdown, only had 11 points. Justin Martyn did a good job throwing the ball, but it was not. And I'm not saying this is his fault. I'm not trying to say, Justin Martyn, didn't do as good as Garbers, so keep Garbers. I still go back to the fact that it's just the offense. It does not suit them. Like if I think Justin Martyn would have thrived in Chip Kelly's offense.
And that's one of the things. Like, well, maybe we should have given this guy a look last year.
Yeah.
When they're, but of course you have, this guy there.
Go Bruins.
Along with, Garbers. My name is Ethan. And there wasn't really room for a third, really. But now looking back, it's like, well, maybe Martyn should have got a shot.
Yeah. And then even Garbers, if Chip Kelly was here, I thought he would have thrived. He's not necessarily the dual threat that Dorian was for the majority of the Chip Kelly.
But he could scoot a little bit. Like, you saw him use his wheels.
He's had to scoot this year because he's had to save his own neck because the offensive line has come at him.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Or the defensive lines have come at him.
Or he has been asked to do like 5 and 7 and 27-step drops.
Yeah, exactly.
For God knows what reason.
Yeah.
And he's got himself killed out there. But look, I think it is possible to say you have two thoughts at once. And that is, number one, it was absolutely clear that Justin Martyn is a lot closer to Ethan Garbers than I think any of us thought, other than the most, other than the fan that always loves the backup quarterback more than the starting quarterback.
Yeah.
Like there are those people out there.
Oh,
but for any rational person, I know I'm surprised by how Martyn looked given the situation.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, totally.
But at the same time, I still think Ethan Garbers should be the one that gets rolled out there if he is healthy.
Yeah. But this is only one performance. So let's say Garbers still can't go and Martyn is called upon for the Minnesota game. Three things can happen. He can either have one hell of a game, which would just bring out the this is why you should have him over Garbers.
Could force the decision to be made in his favor.
Or he could do something similar to what he did last week, and that would be like, okay, he's not really doing more than Garbers, or he actually, takes a brunt of what Garbers has had to. What has come his way?
A setback from last week.
Yeah, he has a setback from last week, and then everybody goes, "Oh well, okay, Martyn is not as good as Garbers. Let's bring Garbers back in." Either way, none of it is fair because this is just, and I'm going to say it. This goes back to how the offense is being called and executed. Yeah,
absolutely. And so I have a couple things to point out about this. Number one, we talked about a lot of the things that people were talking about in favor of Martyn in the Penn State game, and certainly they're talking about like how quickly he's getting the ball out. Well, that's by design. He also has to make the read and do it, right?
Yeah,
he has to do the thing. Like, he was executing those quick passes fairly well, right?
Yeah.
That was something, though, that I don't think Garbers was either told to do or given the opportunity to do in how the previous 4 games were called.
Yeah.
And what I will put, and by the way, is it possible that Garbers had the option to do that on every single play, and he chose to try to take deeper drops and throw it deep? Yeah. I'm just saying, based on what we knew about Garbers from last year when he played in Chip Kelly's system versus how he's played this year in this system, it's been night and day. He was a very productive quarterback last year, and he's been terrible this year. Is that fair to say, Mike?
Yeah.
So then what changed? It wasn't Garbers that changed. It was the opposite change. And that's what leads me to give Garbers the benefit of the doubt in this. Now, statistically, would you be surprised to say that Garbers in his 4 games, right, you look at the percentage of the time he threw the ball 20 yards or more, or the percentage of the time he threw the ball 10 yards or more, right, was double that of Martyn. And what I mean to tell you is that on Garbers' play this year, he tried to throw the ball 10 yards down the field or more 36% of the time. In the game that Martyn just played, he only threw the ball 10 yards or more 18% of the time. So that's double the amount of 10-yard plus passes. And then when you extend it to 20 yards, Garbers, in the 4 games he played, threw the ball more than 20 yards 15% of the time, whereas Martyn, he only had like 2 shots downfield. So it was only 7% of the time. Now, is this something that would necessarily stick if Martyn played the next 4 games too? I don't know. But the point I'm trying to make is that we, watching the game, our eyeballs told us that they were attempting to throw the ball shorter throughout the game. That absolutely was by design. And I'm here to tell you that, yes, and statistically it bears out. Garbers took twice as many deep throws as Martyn did.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And we're suggesting, is it possible that Garbers could have chosen to do that within the context of the offense? Yeah, but do we suspect that's what it is? No. It looks like EB changed the game plan a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious as to what Garbers, if he were given the benefit of the same game plan, would he be able to execute at least as well as Martyn? My thought is, I suspect he probably could. I do. We're not going to know that until he actually gets on the field and is healthy. And at this point, who knows if he will be, With that being said, I think it's a very reasonable take for people to be like Martyn, I guess that makes us Garbers truthers, but it would be Martyn supporters or whatever. I had more than one person, that I respect, like text me during the game and like, they just like how Martyn looks. Like they're like, his command is better. His presence is better. And I get that. You get a big, tall guy out there looking good and throwing the ball. Like, I could see why you'd look at Martyn and say, well, you might as well just, wash your hands of Garbers at this point and just move on to the next big thing. Yeah. Literally big thing. I think it's a legitimate argument, even if me and you don't agree with it. But what I'm saying is the game plan is a lot of this factor right now. And it absolutely was changed. Now, Mike, Garbers throws the ball downfield twice as much as Martyn. The other part, just as a whole, there are things about EB's BO that I do not like, and I think there are things about EB's BO that are handicapping this offense and giving it less of a chance to succeed.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about, you're talking about you have an offensive line that has not been able to really run block, and I would suggest that they haven't really tried to run through a lot of these games. Okay? You also talk about an offense. What do offenses do when they're having trouble dealing with a pass rush, or to defeat the pass rush, or to, try to give the quarterback an opportunity to make plays downfield? Oftentimes, they will try screen plays to diffuse pass rushes, and they will use play action to try to fool the second and third levels of the defense into allowing them to pass down the field.
Yeah.
Would it surprise you, Mike, if we talk about the amount of play action that we have used so far in EB's BO, that it is absolutely like one of the last in the Big Ten in both regards? So just as an example, I just compared, just for the simplicity's sake of like talking about this. I don't want to go through all of the Big Ten quarterbacks, or nationally, I don't want to go through all the quarterbacks, but I picked to compare to what Garbers and Martyn together have gone through. I compared them on these few statistics with Miller Moss from SC, Will Howard from Ohio State, and Drew Aller from Penn State, who they just played. Okay? So number one, how much are these guys pressured versus those guys? Well, Ethan Garbers and Justin Martyn have been pressured somewhere in the neighborhood of 45% of the time they drop back. That's a lot. Yeah. That speaks to how bad your line is. It speaks to how much you're being blitzed and all that stuff, right? It speaks to how much they're coming after you. Well, they've been pressured. Garbers been pressured on 43% of his dropbacks. Martyn on 51% of his dropbacks. Well, Miller Moss has been pressured on 30% of his dropbacks. Okay, 30 versus 45. That's quite a bit of a difference. Drew Aller on 30% of his dropbacks. Mm-hmm. Okay, Moss and Will Howard in the Ohio State's offense under the goddamn bastard Chip Kelly. Will Howard's been pressured 15% of the time he drops back. Do you think it's easier to be a quarterback when you're only pressured 15% of the time, Mikey?
I don't know.
Think it might make it easier?
I think I think pressure really builds character. I'm just saying.
Mike, it's nice of you to say that. As far as like the amount of times,
of course it's a lot harder.
As far as the amount of time they've been blitzed, okay? 49% of the time. And by the way, this goes to a little bit of mitigation for the offensive line too, because by definition, when you're blitzing, you're bringing extra people. And so there should be extra people on the offensive line, i.e. a running back or a tight end or whatever, to pick it up, or the quarterback's got to read it and get rid of it quick, okay? So 49% of Ethan Garbers' dropbacks, he's being blitzed. 46% of Martyn's dropbacks in this last game, he was blitzed. Okay, that's quite a bit. Compared to these other guys, Miller Moss, Will Howard, Drew Aller, all were blitzed somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 35% of the time. So that's, almost 50% more than those guys. So they're under pressure way more. They're being blitzed way more, okay? Which is yet another reason why I think a quick, short passing attack would behoove you, which we saw them finally starting to do this week, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the other thing. So, number one, to combat the pressure of being blitzed, to combat the pressure of being pressured, you might want to mix in a couple screenplays now and again. Have the Bruins screened a lot? No, they have not. The Bruins have thrown in Garbers' times in those 4 games, they have had screens 11% of the time, okay? Which is like 1 out of every 10 dropbacks.
Yeah.
Compare that to Moss, Howard, and Aller. Aller's about the same. He's right around like 7-8%. Moss and Howard have screened twice as much as that, 20% each. Yeah. So 2 out of every 10 plays past dropbacks is a screen. All I'm saying is that's just one way you can try to combat the pressure and the blitzes. But maybe if EB would throw a couple bubble screens in there, maybe if he would try a couple more screens to his backs, that might be, make things a little easier. But the big main one that really kind of chaps my hide is the play action stat. The Bruins have only tried play action in 14% of their dropbacks. Once again, play action is designed to try to fool the second and third level into biting on something so that you can find open space to pass to.
Which is basically a fake handoff that is disguised as a pass.
Fake handoff, fake pitch, whatever. Yeah. Some sort of trying to give them a little bit of razzle-dazzle, kind of trying to fool them, right? The Bruins are like last in the Big Ten in play action percentage, down at 14%, whereas Moss, 31% of the passes are play action. Drew Aller, 25% are play action. Will Howard, Chip Kelly's, that son of a bitch's masterful offense, 44% of the time, he's throwing play action. So it's like there are things that EB could do with EB's BO, I think, to try to make it better. We saw progress this week with more short passes, which is great. Like, I'm glad. But I would also like to see a few more, some short screen passes, some quick passes, and some gosh darn play action.
Yeah.
I think that would be a prescription to try to make this a little bit better, right? Does that make sense, Mike?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, with that being said, we may not have a choice of whether it's going to be Garbers or Martyn, based on what you're saying. It might just end up being Martyn. But if all things were equal, Mikey, and you had both of them standing there, at this point, you're giving the nod to Garbers?
To play this weekend?
To play in a game where both are healthy this season right now.
Oh, yeah, Garbers.
And I'm right there with you, too.
Yeah.
However, and by the way, I do see the reasonable argument to move on to Martyn. I just, in our opinions, we're saying, let's go with Garbers. All right, there we go. All right, I'm done with this goddamn game. Are you done with this game?
I'm done with it.
All right, I'm done with this game. So let's move on with this. Sometimes it's hard to be a Bruin. Okay, so we are going to shut it down for now. This will be part 1 of 2 because, I'm now talking to you after I've recorded the whole show, and it's like over 2 hours. So we're going to cut this into hour-long segments just to make it easier to listen to, I suppose. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe on the Patreon and on the Podomatic and on the Apple Podcasts and on the YouTube and all that stuff. It would really, really help us out, and tell a friend about the What's Bruin Show if you are so inclined. But until, the next show on your feed, thank you for listening, and go Bruins.
Good evening.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
That was the What's Bruin Show.
Try us tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.
It's got to be in or out, Mom. In or out. Well, I need the door closed.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Dude, bro, we play some ball on the West Coast.
The final word is boob.